Maggie is our 8-year-old who is on the autism spectrum. She will be 9 on the 4th of July. And every single year since she's been 3, well, when she was 3, she was diagnosed. Every year since she's been 3, she has to have an ADOS, basically where I don't know if I should say re-diagnosed, but basically where she's requalified for another year for all the programs that she is in. This year that came up this last month, and I have the report here. The funny thing about this, and afterwards there was actually a conversation with the psychologist and Maggie's caseworker, because Maggie's caseworker was back in a back room and there's cameras all over the room, and I didn't realize that there were actually her caseworker and a bunch of therapists, I guess, were back observing how the ADOS was going. And at the end, her caseworker came in and she said, "I have a question for you if you can answer it." I was wondering what happens with a child like this when they know the test. She didn't really get a clear answer on that. And I had wondered the same thing, although I wasn't really worried about the answer because I was very confident when we went in there that Maggie was going to qualify and that there wasn't going to be any change to her services. I haven't really worried about that in about 3 years. I'm pretty certain that where she is developmentally, she has what's considered to be a big enough delay that no one's going to be taking away any services from her. The reason that she was asking this question was because Maggie goes into the ADOS now and she's had it every year and she knows the test. So a few minutes into the test, she picked up a plate, went over to the tester, handed it to her and said, "Goldfish, please, goldfish," and asked for goldfish. When the tester takes the frog and goes hop, 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 and goes ribbit, ribbit, ribbit with the frog, Maggie takes the frog and goes ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. If she picks up the block and pretends it's a phone or a cup or whatever they're pretending the block is, Maggie will pick it up and do it. If she says, "Look, look," Maggie goes like that and turns her head the way that she wants her to look. She knows the test. She knows what she's supposed to do. And she does every single thing basically the way that she's supposed to do. But you can tell because it's Maggie that it's not the same. It's not the same as if I asked Patch to play with this frog. She's going through the motions of what she knows. Like someone's asking her to do something and she is politely putting on a birthday party for the baby. The only thing that she isn't doing out of politeness is the bubbles. And when you do the bubbles, she gets super, super excited and her face is lighting up and she's dancing around the room playing with the bubbles. But for everything else, she is basically kind of humoring us. But she does it all. Instead of like Tessie, we go in with Tessie, and Tessie at her last ADOS was basically like, "I'm not gonna do anything. Sorry, not sorry." So it's really different, and it was interesting to see the difference. And the psychologist really didn't have an answer for us. It was basically just like, well, she qualifies, which was fine. I didn't personally, I don't need an answer beyond she qualifies. She gets all of her services. She still has speech and OT and everything. She still has this diagnosis. It was just interesting to me, and it's interesting to me every year when she goes in to see how good she is at going through those motions because she remembers it, Maggie remembers like everything. She knows that they want you to sing happy birthday. She knows that they want you to pretend to cut up the cake, and she'll be like, "Okay, yep, I know what you want me to do," and so she does it. I think the high point of the test was when this year they asked, one of the questions they'll ask you is there something that you can say without touching her to make her smile? With Tessie, there's not. There is nothing that I can say that will make her smile. I tried pretending I was going to tickle her, like going da 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 da, and Tessie was just like, Tessie can roll her eyes. She has like 10 words, but she can roll her eyes very effectively. I thought about it for a second when she asked me to think of something I could say to make Maggie smile. And I said, "Yeah, there is." And she goes, "Go ahead." And I said, "Hey Maggie, we're going to go to McDonald's after this and you can get a cheeseburger and fries and a small shake." And Maggie's whole entire face lit up and she was like so excited. And the psychologist writes it down and then she looks up at me and she goes, "You're gonna do that, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's actually the plan for once we leave here is I am taking her to get that before she goes to therapy. So I was like, okay, good. I was hoping you were actually going to do it. No way I would have said that. If I wasn't actually going to do it, I would never have said it. Anyways, so I have the results here from her test, and I want to share the results with you. And I'm also going to share my perception of the test and how the results, they're very, very important and they're very helpful in a lot of ways, but they don't always show the whole picture. I mean, they don't show the whole picture of who your child is. And I think I see that more now that we've gone through it so many times. It's just helpful to keep that in perspective when you're getting results like these results. They can be hard to read, but this only offers a glimpse of those minutes in the room, and they don't even really offer the full picture of those minutes in the room. Because when I was reading those, there were so many things that happened that this really didn't capture what Maggie was expressing, I guess, is what I'm saying. So here are the results. And it says that she was 8 years, 9 months old when this test occurred. Test results. The Autism Diagnostic Observation Schedule, 2nd edition, Module 1, was administered to assist in determining a clinical diagnosis. The ADOS-2 is a semi-structured standard assessment instrument designed to obtain information in the areas of communication, reciprocal social intention, and restricted and repetitive behaviors. Module 1 of the ADOS-2 is designed specifically for children who are 31 months of age and older and who are pre-verbal or using single words. It includes a number of play-based activities such as bubbles, the release of a foam dart, an imitation activity, a pretend birthday party, and opportunities for free play and a snack. Maggie was brought to the center by her mother. She remained in the examination room with her for the entire administration. Maggie occasionally used phrases, but mostly single words, to communicate during the ADOS-2 assessment. She directed a limited number of vocalizations to her mother and the examiner. The intonation of her vocalizations was odd. She echoed others' words and phrases regularly, but utilized some spontaneous language which was typically stereotyped. She frequently scripted Bubble Guppies, which is a popular children's television show. She used her mother's hand on one occasion to press the button on the music toy. She did not point to reference objects or spontaneously use descriptive, conventional, instrumental, or emotional gestures. And I would say that part's really pretty accurate. However, just randomly, I realized that Maggie, and if you listen to her talk, she does talk at a very high level. Her voice is very high pitched and she kind of has a sing-song voice when she talks.
Una's hair is pink. No. Pink. Una's hair is purple. Yes. Purple. Molly's hair is pink. Good.
And I realized her new thing is asking to watch Snow White, and she gets really, really excited when Snow White talks and sings, and I think that is why. It's just this theory, but I've been watching her watch Snow White, and whenever Snow White talks or sings, Maggie's like delighted and gets really excited. And I'm wondering if it's because Snow White talks up high at a high pitch also. Just something I've noticed lately. Going on, reciprocal social interaction. Maggie used poorly modulated eye contact to initiate, terminate, and regulate social interaction. She did not smile in response to the examiner's smiles during the responsive social activity, but did smile in response to her mother tickling her. She directed some facial expressions to others, but typically only smiling. She only used vocalizations to communicate social intention. She showed some pleasure appropriate to the context during interactions with the examiner. Maggie looked towards the examiner and made eye contact immediately on the first press of her name during response to name activity. She used vocalizations to request, but the requests were without integrated eye contact. She did not show objects to others and only gave an object on one occasion. Maggie gave her mother a toy plate and said, "Goldfish." Yeah. See, I think that part doesn't capture that she was bringing it over and asking us for a goldfish, and that she'd also, at that point, gone over to the cabinet where she knows they keep the goldfish from all the other years and tried to open it several times. I think that's kind of awesome. I mean, not awesome that she's trying to break into the snack cupboard, but that she remembers it and that she was asking for it. Maggie did spontaneously initiate joint attention in order to direct another person's attention, but did use the orientation of the examiner's eyes and face alone as a cue to look towards the picture on the wall. Maggie's social overtures often lacked integration into context and social quality. During the responsive social smile activity, when the examiner smiled at Maggie, she put her hand on the examiner's face and eyes and hugged her. She showed relatively little concern as to whether the examiner was paying attention to her, but made frequent attempts to interact with her mother. Her social responses were odd, stereotype responses that were restricted in range and sometimes inappropriate to the context. She engaged only when the examiner worked hard to get and keep her interest. The interaction between Maggie and the examiner was sometimes comfortable, but not sustained. And actually, Maggie did really like the examiner. She definitely sometimes really likes people and sometimes really doesn't like people, and you can tell. Stereotype behaviors and restricted interests. Maggie displayed definite unusual sensory interests, including putting the bubble gun in her mouth, blowing the bubble gun fan in her face, and chewing on different objects. She did not display any hand, finger, or other complex mannerisms during the assessment, but these behaviors were observed in previous ADOS assessments. Maggie exhibited clear repetitive stereotyped interests and behaviors, such as attempting to open the cupboards, holding the book for the entire assessment, scripting bubble guppies, playing with the bubbles, and insisting on her mother answering her questions in order to continue with the examination. Yeah, the answering the questions was actually when I said we were going to get her a burger, and she said, and fries, and I said, yes, okay, fries, and she said, and shake, and I said, yes, okay, and a shake. So those were the questions that she insisted I answer, and then she turned around and finished the exam. Which I was actually planning on getting all of those things because the ADOS is a big deal and we do it like one time a year, and so afterwards we go out and we get a treat. She did not display any self-interest behavior, tantrums, aggressions, and or negative disruptive behaviors. She energetically moved around the room, which was difficult to interrupt. Maggie's overall score on Module 1, Some Words, continues to be consistent with an ADOS 2 classification of autism. She demonstrates substantial deficits in social, emotional, reciprocity, nonverbal communication behaviors, and developing, maintaining, and understanding relationships. She also exhibits stereotyped and repetitive use of objects and speech, insistence on sameness, inflexible adherence to routines, highly restricted, fixated interests that are abnormal in intensity focus, and hyperactivity to sensory input, and unusual interest in sensory aspects of the environment. Based on the above, a clinical diagnosis of autism continues to be supported, and she continues to meet medical necessity for comprehensive behavioral intervention. Her score on developmental disability Children's Global Assessment Scale is 50, indicating moderate functioning in most domains, self-care, social behavior, and school academic, and severe impairment in one, communication. Her score indicates the following: social overtures and responses are markedly absent or inappropriate, her daily living skills are significantly delayed, and stereotypical persistent unusual behaviors are noticeable to the casual observer and impede functioning. Then they make recommendations that she'd continue to benefit from supports from case management from her school district, from therapies. And actually, I was really excited about that Children's Global Assessment Scale, that she is up to 50. Last year it was 45. The year before it was like 40. It's gone up each year by a bit. That one is steadily gone up because she can do a lot of things. She totally gets dressed by herself, like 9 out of 10 mornings. She does a ton of things by herself. She really is independent in a lot of ways. It's really the eloping and the communication that caused her to get that 10 out of 10 score. As I said, these reports can be helpful, and it can be really helpful to see the progress as we've seen over the years, especially when you do have scores that are creeping up like that and that show how hard she's worked and that she has made progress in a lot of different areas. But the scores definitely fall short of capturing who she is and who your child is as a person. So try not to take any language that sounds too pathological too much to heart. Your child is who they are. And what I like to do, I like to have all of the information like this that I can, so that I can help the girls in whatever way that I can help them. A lot of times I find that having more information is really helpful in advocating for them. That is one of the reasons that we've been involved in doing so many different activities and studies where I can gather information of this sort beyond just their yearly evaluations. But spending an hour in a room with a stranger isn't going to give anyone a full picture of who your child or who you are. So I would really take any of those results with a grain of salt. Use them to get support. You are, or if it's your child is the same person that you always were. And you really can't get a full picture of who a person is from 1 hour of their life. That's it for today. If you like this video, we would love it if you'd give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in all things autism, we would love it if you'd hit subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.